The Shakers by Artemus Ward. The Shakers is the strangest religious sects I ever met. I hearn tell of 'em, and I seen 'em with their broad-brimmed hats and long-waisted coats, but I'd never come into immediate contact with 'em, and I'd sot 'em down as lacking intellect, as I'd never seen 'em to my show. Leastways, if they come, they was disguised in white people's clothes, so I didn't know 'em. But in the spring of 18, I got swamped in the exterior New York State one dark and stormy night when the winds blew piteously, and I was forced to tie up with the Shakers. I was toiling through the mud when in the dim vista of the future I observed the gleams of a tallow candle. Tying a hornet's nest to my off-horse's tail to kind of encourage him, I soon reached the place. I knocked at the door, which was opened unto me by a tall, slick-faced, solemn-looking individual who turned out to be an elder. "Mr. Shaker," said I, "you see before you a babe in the woods, so to speak, and he axes shelter of you." "Yea," said the Shaker, and he led the way into the house, another Shaker being sent to put my horses and wagon under cover. A solemn female, looking somewhat like last year's beanpole stuck into a long meal bag, come in and asked me was I athirst and did I hunger, to which I urbanely answered, "A few." She went off, and I endeavored to open a conversation with the old man. "Elder, I 'spect," said I. "Yea," he said. "Health's good, I reckon?" "Yea." "What's the wages of a elder when he understands his business, or do you devote your services gratuitous?" "Yea." "Stormy night, sir?" "Yea." "If the storm continues, there'll be a mess underfoot, eh?" "Yea." "It's unpleasant when there's a mess underfoot." "Yea." "If I may be so bold, kind sir, what's the price of that peculiar kind of waistcoat you wear, including trimmings?" "Yea." I paused a minute, and then, thinking I'd be facetious with him and see how that would go, I slapped him on the shoulder, bust into a hearty laugh, and told him that as a yeaer he had no living equal. He jumped up as if boiling water had been squirted into his ears, groaned, rolled his eyes up towards the ceiling, and said, "You're a man of sin." He then walked out of the room. Just then the female in the meal bag stuck her head into the room and stated that refreshments awaited the weary traveler, and I said if it was victuals she meant, the weary traveler was agreeable, and I followed her into the next room. I sat down to the table, and the female in the meal bag poured out some tea. She said nothing, and for 5 minutes the only live thing in that room was an old wooden clock which ticked in a subdued and bashful manner in the corner. This deathly stillness made me uneasy, and I determined to talk to the female or bust, so says I, "Marriage is agin your rules, I believe, marm." "Yea." "The sexes live strictly apart, I 'spect." "Yea." "It's kinda sing'lar," says I, putting on my most sweetest look and speaking in a winning voice, "that so fair a maid as thou never got hitched to some likely feller." N.B. She was upwards of 40 and homely as a stump fence, but I thought I'd tickle her. "I don't like men," said she, very short. "Well, I don't know," says I. "They're a rather important part of the population. I don't scarcely see how we could get along without 'em." "Us poor women folks could get along a great deal better if there was no men." You'll excuse me, Mom, but I don't think that 'ere would work. It wouldn't be regular. I'm 'fraid of men," said she. "That's unnecessary, Mom. You ain't in no danger. Don't fret yourself on that pint. Here we're shot out from the sinful world. Here all is peace. Here we are brothers and sisters. We don't marry and consequently have no domestic difficulties. Husbands don't abuse their wives. Wives don't worrit their husbands. There's no children here to worrit us. Nothing to worrit us here. No wicked matrimony here. Would thou like to be a shaker?" "No," says I. "It ain't my style." I had now heisted in as big a load of provisions as I could carry comfortable, and leaning back in my chair, commenced picking my teeth with a fork. The female went out, leaving me all alone with the clock. I hadn't sat there long before the elder poked his head in at the door. "You're a man of sin," he said, and groaned and went away. Directly there come in 2 young shakeresses, as pretty and slick-looking gals as I ever met. It is true they was dressed in meal bags like the old one I'd met previously, and their shiny, silky hair was hid from sight by long white caps, such as I suppose female jousts wear, but their eyes sparkled like diamonds. Their cheeks is like roses, and they was charming enough to make a man throw stuns at his grandmother if they asked him to. They commenced clearing away the dishes, casting shy glances at me all the time. I got excited. I forgot Betsy Jane in my rapture, and says I, "My pretty dears, how are you?" "We are well," they solemnly said. "Where's the old man?" said I, in a soft voice. "Of whom dost thou speak, Brother Uriah?" "I mean the gay and festive cuss who calls me a man of sin. Shouldn't wonder if his name was Uriah." "He has retired." "Well, my pretty dears," says I, "let's have some fun. Let's play Puss in the Corner. What say?" "Are you a shaker, sir?" they asked. "Well, my pretty dears, I haven't arrayed my proud form in a long waistcoat yet, but if they was all like you, perhaps I'd join 'em. As it is, I'm a shaker pro-temporary." They was full of fun. I seed that at first, only they was a little scary. I taught 'em Puss in the Corner in sich-like place, and we had a nice time, keeping quiet, of course, so the old man shouldn't hear. When we broke up, says I, "My pretty dears, ere I go, you have no objections, have you, to an innocent kiss at parting?" "Yea," they said, and I yayed. I went upstairs to bed. I suppose I'd been snoozing half an hour when I was woke up by a noise at the door. I sat up in bed, leaning on my elbows and rubbing my eyes, and I saw the following picture. The elder stood in the doorway with a tallow candle in his hand. He hadn't no wearing apparel on except his nightclothes, which fluttered in the breeze like a secession flag. He said, "You're a man of sin," then groaned and went away. I went to sleep again and dreamt of running off with the pretty little shakeresses mounted on my California bar. I thought the bar insisted on steering straight for my dooryard in Baldensville, and that Betsy Jane come out and give us a warm reception with a pan full of boiling water. I was woke up early by the elder. He said refreshments is ready for me downstairs. Then, saying I was a man of sin, he went groaning away. As I was going through the entry to the room where the victuals was, I come across the elder and the old female I'd met the night before, and what do you suppose they is up to? Hugging and kissing like young lovers in their gushingest state. Says I, "My shaker friends, I reckon you better suspend the rules and get married." "You must excuse Brother Uriah," said the female. "He's subject to fits and ain't got no command over hisself when he's into 'em." "Certainly," says I been took that way myself frequent." "You're a man of sin," said the elder. After breakfast, my little shaker friends come in again to clear away the dishes. "My pretty dears," says I, "shall we yea again?" "Nay," they said, and I neighed. The Shakers asked me to go to their meetin', as they was to have services that morning, so I put on a clean-biled rag and went. The meetin' house was as neat as a pin. The floor was white as chalk and smooth as glass. The Shakers was all on hand in clean waistcoats and meal bags ranged on the floor like military companies, the males on one side of the room and the females on t'other. They commenced clapping their hands and singing and dancing. They danced kind of slow at first, but as they got warmed up, they shaved it down very brisk, I tell you. Elder Uriah, in particular, exhibited a right smart chance of spryness in his legs, considering his time of life, and as he come a double shuffle near where I sat, I rewarded him with a approving smile and said, "Hunky boy, go it, my gay and festive cuss." "You're a man of sin," he said, continuing his shuffle. The spirit, as they called it, then moved a short fat shaker to say a few remarks. He said they was Shakers and all was equal. They was the purest and selectest people on the yearth. Other people was sinful as they could be, but Shakers was all right. Shakers was all going kerslap to the promised land, and nobody wa'n't going to stand at the gate to bar 'em out. If they did, they'd get run over. The Shakers then danced and sung again, and after they was through, one of 'em asked me what I thought of it. Says I, "What does it signify?" "What?" says he. "Why, this jumping up and singing, this long waistcoat business, and this anti-matrimony idea. My friends, you are neat and tidy, your lands is flowing with milk and honey, your brooms is fine, and your apple sass is honest. When a man buys a keg of apple sass of you, he don't find a great many shavings under a few layers of sass, a little game, I'm sorry to say, some of my New England ancestors used to practice. Your garden seeds is fine, and if I should sow 'em on the rock of Gibraltar, probably I should raise a good mess of garden sass. You are honest in your dealings, you are quiet and don't disturb nobody. For all this I gives you credit. But your religion is small potatoes, I must say. You mope away your lives here in single wretchedness, as you are all by yourselves. Nothing ever conflicts with your peculiar ideas except when human nature busts out among you, as I understand she sometimes do. I give Uriah a sly wink here, which made the old fellow squirm like a speared eel. You wear long waistcoats and long faces, and lead a gloomy life indeed. No children's prattle is ever heard around your hearthstones. You're in a dreary fog all the time, and you treat the jolly sunshine of life as though it was a thief driving it from your doors by them waistcoats and meal bags and peculiar notions of yourn. The gals among you, some of which are as slick pieces of calico as I ever set eyes on, sighing to place their heads again waistcoats which cover honest, manly hearts, while you old heads fool yourselves with the idea that they are fulfilling their mission here and are contented. Here you are, all penned up by yourselves, talking about the sins of a world you don't know nothing of. Meanwhile, said world continues to resolve round on her own axletree once in every 24 hours, subject to the Constitution of the United States, and is a very pleasant place of residence. It's a unnatural, unreasonable, and dismal life you're leading here, so it strikes me. My Shaker friends, I now bid you a welcome adieu. You have treated me exceeding well. Thank you kindly, one and all. A base exhibitor of depraved monkeys and unprincipled waxworks, said Uriah. Hello, Uriah, says I. I'd almost forgot you. Well, look out for them fits of yourn, and don't catch cold and die in the flower of your youth and beauty. And I resumed my journey.